I've talked about Encanto as a whole, I've talked about Bruno, but I am not done yet. So, who's next? Well, hear me out. Julieta. If you're currently staring at your screen wondering what the fresh hell I am on about, I don't blame you. Julieta is, after all, one of the characters we spend the least amount of time with in the entire movie. But I love her so much, and I utterly adore how they handled her gift, so I'm going to talk about her. But before we can do that, I do actually have to issue an update here. In my first video on Encanto, I mentioned how I'm not sure I'm on board with the theory that Bruno has OCD. But then one of you lovely people popped into my comments to inform me that he actually explicitly is noted to have OCD in the script. So that's that on that, I suppose. And I actually love this so much because when have you ever heard of a character with OCD in a children's movie who gets such a positive, understanding portrayal? Never that I can think of. So again, on this channel we love and appreciate the Ratman. Anyway, back on topic. Julieta is the eldest of the triplets, which is honestly just so obvious if you take even a moment to look at them. Everything about each of them makes their birth order so incredibly obvious to me. Despite the fact that they are triplets, Julieta has all of the energy of the oldest sister who had to step up and help take care of the family, which makes a ton of sense, given her gift and the fact that Alma was stuck as a single mother raising magical triplets. One of them had to end up being the responsible one. It makes all the sense in the world for it to be Julieta, given not just her being the eldest but also her gift. Which I guess is kind of a chicken or the egg situation. Seriously, this woman has been a caretaker since she was 5 years old, and I have so many emotions about it. In this day and age, though, she certainly seems to be the most settled of the triplets, for lack of a better word. She's level-headed, soft-spoken, and obviously deeply caring and nurturing, though that doesn't stop her from rolling her eyes in a fond but frustrated way when Augustine stumbles into her kitchen covered in bee stings. Honestly, thinking about how their relationship must have developed because he's so damn clumsy, so he'd have to come see her over and over again, just delights me to no end. I also love that here we see a mother who obviously cares for her children, but she's not perfect. She doesn't believe Mirabel, and she's so worried for her youngest that she seems to have missed that her other daughters are also struggling. Which is obviously not her fault, but it still happened. I think, if I were to hazard a guess, Julieta has paid the least attention to Isabella in recent years, because Isabella is a grown woman in her own right now, and she is very good at pretending she's fine. So Julieta probably felt secure in focusing more of her energy on Mirabel, which probably didn't help the resentment Isabella already felt towards her youngest sister. And aside from that, her duties as the town healer also pull her away from her family. There is only so much energy you can give to each piece of your life, and some of her attention will always be on the townsfolk. That's not a bad thing, it's just a reality when one of your parents works in healthcare. Or, really, any demanding field. She just has a lot on her plate all of the time. But let's actually talk about her gift. We don't see a lot of it in action, but from what we do, I think it's safe to conclude that it is some powerful shit.
You just healed my hand with an arepa con queso.
If I recall correctly, there is a total of 4 times we actually see her gift in action in the movie. The most notable one being this guy, because from this section the assumption would be that not only can her gift instantly heal a broken bone, but it can also correctly reset it with no interference from anyone. But it could also be a stylistic thing, because we are in the middle of a song, and obviously, creative license can be taken in non-diegetic musical numbers. Also, the guy's arm snaps as we are watching for seemingly no reason. That's not, generally speaking, how broken bones tend to behave. So it could very well just be cartoon over-exaggeration for the sake of making her gift clear to the kids. In actuality, what he probably had was a non-displaced fracture, which could be healed with just some magic, no physical resetting required. We don't, strictly speaking, know Julieta's limits, but I have a few ideas. We've seen her magic work wonders on injuries and allergic reactions. Also, because the idea of her gift is based in a mother's cooking making you feel better, I think we can safely assume that you can wave goodbye to all seasonal colds and flus. On Twitter, Jared Bush has stated that she has control over what her food heals, but also that there are definitely illnesses her gift can't tackle. So she probably can't cure cancer. Or if she could, she couldn't without knowing about it really early on, which, given the rough idea of a time period that we have, probably, unfortunately, not a possibility. I think she'd also start running into trouble with things like, say, someone's lost a leg, or it's hanging on by a thread. I don't think her gift would be quite powerful enough to regrow something that has been functionally removed. I think what's more likely is that it would heal the site of the amputation into a stump instantly. But either way, this is an awesome gift, and we've established that it has definitely made quality of life in this town absolutely skyrocket, right? Yes. Doesn't exactly explain why I'm so delighted by it, though. Well... No, I'm not kidding, this really all comes back to Mirabel's glasses. Julieta's gift is healing through food, and her daughter still needs glasses. Hell, her husband, who she has probably had to heal more than literally any other person in town, still needs glasses. This is exactly the problem I had with Steven Universe and his healing spit, except in reverse, and I fucking love it. So, what can we draw from the fact that Julieta's gift hasn't affected Mirabel or Augustin's vision? And I say hasn't here instead of doesn't, because again on Twitter, Jared Bush has stated that Julieta could do the magic equivalent of LASIK if she wanted to, but she hasn't. Both because they don't want her to, and because she just doesn't see their vision as something to quote-unquote cure. So that means disabled people still get to exist. And also that Julieta has a robust moral compass as a medical caregiver, but I think we all already knew that bit. The town probably has way less permanent injury type disabilities, but otherwise, we would still be around. Her gift would heal our scrapes and bruises and otherwise leave us alone. Take my situation, for example. I have just a crap ton of shit to deal with, and it's all chronic. If I lived in the Encanto, I would probably go to Julieta at least once a week to stock up on small snacks, to reduce swelling and pain, get rid of migraines if her food works for that, etc., so on and so forth. Her gift would probably make my life 1,000,000 times easier day to day, but I don't think it'd actually have any effect on the chronic nature of my conditions, or the actual subtle malformations that some of my joints have. Because for it to do that, part of it comes back to how I think her gift would handle amputations. Can't do anything about something that's either completely gone, or was never there in the first place, or just isn't the right shape. And for the rest, well, it would have to go diving into my genetics and start fucking around in there, and since Augustine is still allergic to bees, it's clearly not doing that. Which is good, because that's what we call eugenics, and I don't know if you know this, but it's, really not good. The fact that Augustine and Mirabel still wear glasses means a deaf person could go to her without worrying that she might force them to become hearing. Same with congenital amputees, blind people, and so on and so forth onwards into infinity. Julieta has incredibly powerful healing magic, but it's incredibly powerful healing magic that doesn't look at a disabled person and immediately go, that has to be fixed. And I cannot tell you how much that means to me. And the fact that it's not just this amorphous, vague idea of magic using Julieta as a catalyst that determines it, but actually Julieta herself, a human person sitting down with another human person and listening to them and working with them in regards to their wants and needs. It honestly just makes it a million times better. I'm always leery of healing powers in media because there are so many ways to fuck it up so badly when it comes to disabled people. Again, see Steven Universe just fucking magically giving Connie 20/20 vision completely accidentally and without her consent. But Julieta's gift doesn't do that. Despite the fact that we don't actually have anything in the way of disabled representation, I can watch this movie and be content in the knowledge that it hasn't accidentally set up a world where my right to exist as I do is in question. I mean, honestly, if Encanto of all movies had managed to accidentally prop up that narrative, it would almost have been impressive, considering how antithetical it is to the story as a whole. But no, they managed to very neatly avoid all of that mess with something as simple as just letting the main character wear glasses. So, in conclusion, Julieta Madrigal is amazing, and the way her gift is presented is a comforting blanket cocoon to me, a disabled person who is... Well, I think it's safe to say I might be a little bit jaded when it comes to various forms of media and its depiction of people like me. Also, I just desperately need her arepas con queso. Not just because they'd probably be the most powerful, effective painkillers I've ever taken in my life, but also because they just actually look amazing and I want to eat that right now immediately. Thanks for watching this video. If you liked it, consider liking it and maybe subscribing. I will be back here Thursday after next. Bye!